Sometimes the problem with life is that we're looking at it from the wrong point of view. And it's always good to get another perspective on where we are by stepping out of our surroundings, for which we're too close up, we're myopic, and we're only looking at things not past our nose. But if we go someplace else and we look down on something and we see the whole surroundings, then our problems don't seem to be as bad. And this is what we have to do with our life. We have to put it into perspective. And if you're an artist and you're drawing at something in the distance, you know that there's such a thing called a vanishing point. And all things converge to that point. And as it does, the ratio of distance and height changes accordingly. And sometimes our problems are so close to us and they loom so large, it's because we're sitting right on top of them. What we need to do is to go to that vanishing point and look back and see where those problems really are. And when we do, we will see that they're not that big, that they really aren't as magnified as we make them. But we all have problems. Every one of us has problems. We're not going to get out of life without problems. Problems is part of being a human being. It's also a problem with being the result of our first parents turning against God's love for them. When they were in Eden, they didn't have any problems because they walked through the garden at every moment with their God. But they chose otherwise. And so do we. Sometimes our problems exist because we're not walking with the God who loves us. And we need to walk with that God at every single moment of our life. Otherwise, we don't see past our nose and we lose perspective. And what is the meaning of life? We were created for one reason and one reason only: to know, to love, and to serve our wonderful and marvelous Creator. To know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him. And do the best we can with our frailties and our faults and all the other things that go on in our life. And that takes an effort, and it takes a process, and it takes a commitment. Because if I'm going to let God walk with me in my garden at every moment, I have to, first of all, be aware of Him. And in order to be aware of Him, I have to be aware of the things that are in my life that are blocking me from Him. And God only knows how many those are. Today, we live in a world full of nothing but distraction, distraction, distraction. Most of it is what is deceitful and fake. And so we have to turn our life back to important things that make our life worth living, and make that relationship with the God who loves us real. And we do that by simply starting out, beginning, if we don't already have one, a relationship with Him. And our relationship is one of love. That's all He wants from us. All He wants from us is to love Him back the way He loves us. We'll never be able to do it the way He does to us because we're so pockmarked and so flawed. But He gives us infinite love. And He just asks for our human love back as best we can, with all of faults and failings and pockmarks that are on it. And it begins by simply saying, Father, God Almighty, I thank You for creating me out of nothing and bringing me into being, and giving me this universe that You've given me to let me participate in it with all of its beauty and all of its wonder. And I thank You for caring about me as a person. I'm not just a piece of sand someplace on a big beach, lost. No, You know me personally, and You want that relationship with me as just if it was just You and me. Yes, God, it's up to me to make that relationship real. You are forever giving. You are forever loving. And it's me who gets distracted, who gets involved in all this other stuff in my life that really isn't important. And you say, well, I live this busy life. How can I take time out to do what you're asking me to do, to live this kind of life with God? Well, once you get a relationship with him, it's not hard, because his presence is everywhere, and you will feel his presence, and you will know his presence, and you just have to look around you and you will see him everywhere. So don't be afraid to surrender to your will to God, because it's when you surrender your will to God that you will be totally free, like you've never been in your life before. And that's when life will begin to have true meaning. The freedom that God gave us to just be who we are in his presence. So, begin that relationship if you don't have one already. And if you do, learn to develop it and produce a better relationship. Because every time you get your relationship better with the God that loves you, the more you're going to grow, and the more you're going to develop, and the more you're going to love, and the more you're going to be like him. So, don't be afraid to take another perspective. Get freedom that God gave us to just be who we are in his presence. So, begin that relationship if you don't have one already. And if you do, learn to develop it and produce a better relationship. Because every time you get your relationship better with the God that loves you, the more you're going to grow, and the more you're going to develop, and the more you're going to love, and the more you're going to be like him. So, don't be afraid to take another perspective.